Hi, I'm Natalie, and today we're going to sew up the Hendrix bag. This is how she is. Isn't she cute? There are lots of features to this, including slip-in pockets on the front and back, a magnetic snap closure, and I riveted on the front flap to make it a little bit easier. As always, I'm using a domestic machine to make these SVC bags. Now, one thing I want to bring your attention to is we do have two versions of this video, and the easier version leaves off the pockets in case you're worried about layers on your domestic machine. So you can always do that. It's the same construction. You just leave off those slip-in pockets front and back. Now, as always, get all your tools ready, such as a Teflon foot, your mallet, your Microtex needle 8012, and your Gutermann thread, Sew All thread, or whatever you're using. If you're on an industrial, you might be using Tex 70 thread. We did include the acrylic template for our SVC current members. If you don't have this and you want it, it is up for sale on the website. It'll just make the construction of the strap simpler, easier. And one other thing with this, because I made two straps I can show you, there will be some raw edging. So if you have edge coat, this is your chance to use it, and it's not a big deal because the strap, you could always make 2 or 3 and use your best one. I just ordered some edge coat, so I'm going to be doing a tutorial on how to apply it. If the edges bother you, if they don't, then don't even worry about it. You don't have to spend more money on paint. I have, in the past, done Sharpie. You can kind of see it here, see that light blue color? So I did a little bit of Sharpie here just to show you the difference. You might see the white, or you can Sharpie it in with any old color you want. This vinyl has tons of colors. But it just gives those edges a nice finished look, and it seals them. It's almost like a glue. So I would say do it. Do it on this one. Try it out. And I'll have a tutorial up soon for you. I think that's it, right, Rob? All right, let's get into it. All right, so for the newer sewist, I'm going to show you how I'm tiling the Hendrix Bag pattern pieces, and then I'm going to cut out the materials. So if you don't need this part, it's perfectly fine to go to the next chapter. But let's head overhead. Let's go overhead. And right here on the very first sheet, I show you how to tile. Sorry, I'm having trouble with words today. It's 4 across. So what I usually do is I put the first sheet down, and then I cut this left margin off sheets 2, 3, and 4. And then I'll do the same for the bottom, and then also cut the top off the bottom layer. Again, I'm using my paper cutter, my rotary cutter, because it's faster. And then I'm going to match these diamonds as best I can right here. And I'll put one piece of tape down. And this is just a start. So that's page 2. Let me move this out of the way here. This is page 3. Again, matching those diamonds. It's not like neurosurgery or anything. You don't have to be microscopically accurate, but you do want to line things up as best you can. Get it as best you can. This one, it looks like I need that other diamond piece is hidden, so I'll try to move that. Okay, for the bottom row, here's page 5. I'm going to cut down the left side for pages 6, 7, and 8. And then for all of them, we're going to cut off that top edge so that we can match it with the triangles up top. Make sure your paper is stacked accurately. I turn it around so I can use the ruler in my left hand, cutter in my right hand, and then all at one time I'm going to add this sheet back on top, and we're going to cut off that top border. Oop, let me make sure I don't move anything. All right, here's page 5. I'm going to bring my tape down. See, matching that guy. Page page 6. See these numbers that are faded out? That's how you know what sheet you're on. And see, I'm matching this top edge. These are lined up. I'm gonna put a piece of tape here and then a small piece of tape up here in the corners. You don't have to use gobs of tape or anything. This is page 7. And the most important thing is to line up this part of the strap here. I'll do one there, I'll do one up here, and the last page. Right, so this flap, the lines here and here, here and here are lined up. And the corners again. Okay. Now I can cut out my pattern pieces. And I really tried not to have things overlapping so that you didn't feel panicked. Remember this, when we cut our fabrics out, this one is cut on the fold. That's really important. This one we end up cutting in half. So we only need one. Let's see. I do want you, if you printed out the PDF, to measure this box. Print at 100%. Do not fit to page or scale. That's really important. And then also keep your file on your computer because we do not store your patterns for you. We don't have enough space for that. So we depend that you store it on your computer. I just created a folder after Ramel taught me this. I created 2 folders. One says purchased patterns, and then one says purchased bag patterns. And so I know where to go if I'm looking for a garment versus a bag pattern that I've purchased from other designers. And it just makes it easier. So that's why I put make a folder, SHH sewing patterns, so you can find your stuff easily on your computer later. All right, let's get cutting these shapes out. All right, let's cut out our materials. We're going to be using SVC vinyl and Sew HungryHippie water resistant canvas. You can also use fabric canvas if you prefer, or quilting cotton for the whole thing, but you'll need to interface if you're using quilting cotton or materials that don't have much body. If you're using the same materials as me, this entire bag has 0 interfacing. That's awesome. That speeds it up, right? Okay, so first up, let's cut out the vinyl. Now on your pattern sheet, in that chart on the very first page, other than the cover sheet, it tells you how many you need of each piece. So as you're cutting them, you can always just tick it off once it's cut. let's go overhead. This really doesn't have a direction, it's non-directional, but if you want to fussy cut anything, meaning like if you want this centered, then take care to cut it out that way now. Usually I don't do that the first time through a bag, but let's give it a shot. And this is not my first time through this bag, but it's my first time with this vinyl. I made it with the skull vinyl earlier in the week. All right, I've got my other cutter, and what I'm gonna do is help myself by cutting it down. This is the front flap, so it's the part that is seen most often when you're holding the bag. That's why I'm gonna cut this first. I think I've got that's pretty well centered. Let me see. Yeah, right down the center of that design there. All right, there's my front flap. I still need to cut a water resistant canvas with this, but I'm gonna cut all of my vinyl first. Let's see if I can use this. Oh, it's a little bit too skinny. All right, but I've got this, so I'm gonna cut my D-ring attachment piece. And then I'm gonna grab my clips. And clip it in place. Now let's do the side. We need 2 of these side panels. And I will not worry about fussy cutting these. There's one. All right, now we're gonna fast forward again, and I will cut out all the WRC pieces. I'm gonna leave it folded so that I'm cutting 2 at a time. Now, if you want to do slip-in pockets for your lining, you can cut them out. You'll have plenty of fabric to do so. I don't want that on my bag, so I'm not going to do that. All right, let's cut our flap. Again, this one I can trim after I have it sewn together as well. Just going to get it closer. Take a minute to clean up your space. Cutting and prepping takes so long for me, but it's worth it to have everything labeled, set out, and your space cleaned up. And then just review that you've got all your things cut out. We will need some hardware, 3/4 inch hardware, 2 D-rings, 2 swivels. I'm gonna be using 4 rivets for the strap alone. And then we're gonna see if I want to rivet on the flap or whether I'll sew it on. So that is your choice. I may end up using an additional 3 or 4 rivets to do the flap. Sometimes, depending on the materials you're using, you have to adjust how you attach things in the moment. And it kind of depends on your mood, the materials, and your machine. All right? Okay, so do you have double-sided sticky tape? I do. We're gonna be using that today, like in a lot of my tutorials. I'm just checking off that I have cut everything out. Yep. All right, let's go to the next page. Okay, let's turn the page. This is step 4, I believe. On the right side of the flap lining piece, place the remaining magnet. So the flap is this funky shape here. And I'm gonna go overhead. Now, I think it would be a good idea for me to iron this out so it's nice and flat. I'm gonna spray it first. You can spray it, it'll be okay. And where's my iron? I think I'll use my mini iron because with bag making, I like it to be a little bit more precise. I see my big iron on the floor. Hi. I'm just gonna wait for this to heat up. I have it all the way turned up. I always use my iron on high heat. Just like I cook on high too. Like everything as fast as you can go. And you're the opposite. You're like, let's just slow it down. That's why you're good for me. All right, let's go. Let's see how this, yep. Look at that. Isn't that awesome? Now you notice I don't keep it in place long. I just kind of move it over, flatten it out. There's that. There, good. Now this will be the right side of my pattern piece, so I need to bring this in and mark my magnet placement here. There's my little tool. And then that hole will be in the center of my prongs. I have my 2 little markings there to make the slit pieces, slit holes. Gosh, with dark colors, I can hardly see what I'm doing. Let's see, there it is. There it is. Okay, there's one, there's the other. Whew. Now again, with the little scrap piece of foam or whatever you have, trim it down a little bit. There we go. All right, let's place this right sides together. You want this facing the outside. So this is now the right side. Just gonna move my iron and move these clips. Let me check in with my pattern piece. Yep. All right, so we're gonna sew all the way around the edge, but leave this top flat part open because we're gonna turn it right side out with that. Let's go to the machine. Again with the clipping of the curves. And we'll trim down the seam allowance as well. Now do this gently. If you want to warm up your vinyl to get it to turn out more easily, you can. I don't find this one is difficult to do. It just takes a few minutes. Coaxing everything out. I don't try to ramrod it through because then I'll bust seams. So I'm coming in here with my fingers and just gently pushing out the seam allowance. And you know, we do have that tool. I'm going to use the larger balled end and run it along the corner there. Yeah, I see a difference. There we go. And then again up here, just run it along the seam and then press it with your fingers. Once you're happy with that, let's top stitch. Bring it over to the machine. I'm going to turn mine to a 4mm stitch length. Now for this part, this will show. So what you can do is a couple of things. In the pattern, I have you fold it and tuck it in. Now I realize that might be difficult for some of you with your machines. So I'm gonna show you another way. We're just gonna use some of our scrap vinyl and we're gonna cut 3/4 of an inch strip. And it just has to be long enough to cover that top edge. Give me a sec. I gotta straighten this up a bit. 3/4, 3/4. My eye always catches when it's not a straight cut. All right, let's get our double-sided sticky tape. I want you to put some along this edge. You probably know what I'm gonna do here, right? We're gonna use this vinyl like binding because vinyl will not fray. So take your strip, fold it lengthwise in half and give yourself a crease. And first, we want to go off the edge a little bit. See how this strip is longer than the top? It doesn't have to be this much longer, but a little longer. And you're going to place that like that. Now hold on, let's go over to the machine. Remember, I did not take this paper off yet. Now I'm going to take it off. I get asked probably 10 times a day if my needle gets stuck on the double-sided sticky tape, and no, it does not. Not ever. So, but that's why I purchase brands that I trust, because I can't answer for some obscure brand off Amazon or something. I know what works for me. All right, let's fold this over the top. It will now cover the stitching we just did, and that edge will look great. Let me get this paper off here. All right, let's take it overhead. To the machine. You know what I meant, Ron. I'm going to start back here, kind of like a leader, fabric leader. And let's go over here and trim it up. Now, if for whatever reason those edges bother you, just use a Sharpie and color them, or use your edge paint. But I really don't notice any edges here that, something that would be jarring and distract my eyes. I don't. So there's our flap. All right, I'm going to move it out of my way. So we just did steps 4, 5, and 6. We're moving right along. Okay. Oh, you know what I did the magnet. I was like, did I do the magnet? 7. Step 7, fold the D-ring attachment piece in half and cut it. So I had you cut one of these, right? We're just going to fold it like this. Short edges meeting. Oops. Let me move that out of the way. And we'll cut right down that crease. Now I'm going to fold it so that it's longer like this, and see if I cut this. I'm going to trim a little off so that my D-rings will slide better. I will do that for you in the pattern. You don't have to worry about this. I was thinking we would use 1-inch hardware again, but we're using 3/4 inch. So we're just going to do this. And you can sew or rivet, and I am definitely going to rivet. Now, if this is too thick for you, make your D-ring attachments from the WRC or fabric canvas or quilting cotton, but reinforce it with SF101. Something that can stand some strength with use, okay? Now we need to grab our side panels. Here we are. The 2 exterior. And again, this is measuring. I want the bottom of your D-ring to hit at 2 inches down from that top edge. Not the top, the bottom of your D-ring. So what I'm going to do is give myself a little marker, so I know where I want it to hit. And that way, this will be right there and centered. I am going to rivet these on. If you don't have a table press, I do have an affiliate link so you can save some money and get yourself one. It's like a power tool. It will help you be more accurate and place these easily. Here's my rivet press. And getting my hole puncher tool. You might have a die hole puncher, and that is great. Do whatever works for you. Now I'm going to punch my hole in the center of that. I've already got a hole from my Japanese hole punch. I'm gonna put my rivet through here. Oh, that one's not long enough. If you're using vinyl, you will need extra long posts. Let's see if I have any here. I might have to use silver. I only have, no, those aren't long. I'm gonna use gold because that's what I have these extra long posts for. Right? And I'm putting it through, and then I'm gonna put the cap on the back. I'll do the other one overhead so you can really see, but I just want you to see this is a really easy way to get this attached without any breaking of needles or struggling with your machine. I just wanna do what's easiest for you. I am going to clean up some of my edging here. There. You know, I wish I had bronze rivets, but it's not terrible if you mix hardware colors, is it? It's not the end of the world. It's fine. All right, let me go overhead and show you this one. Centering. I'm going to take my post and put it through there, and then put it through my hole here, and then put the cap on. Now that's not permanent until you press it with the table press. All right, it's on. and it's never coming off. We'll be using more with that rivet press in a little later. So we've got step 7 done. Step 8, place the wider edge of the exterior panel with the short sides of your bottom panel. So this is our exterior bottom panel, and this is what we're doing as far as making the gusset portion. We're gonna sew them together like this, capiche? So right sides together, sew across. Let's go to the machine. Now on this portion, we're gonna take a little bit bigger seam allowance, and we're gonna do 2 passes. So see that? See that line? Now I'm gonna sew again just inside it, not on top, because I don't wanna tear the vinyl. All right, let's grab the other, well, let's top stitch this first. Fold it back. The seam allowance will be this way, and I'm gonna top stitch that down. See how good that looks then? All right, let's grab the other piece. The other bottom edge, they will match. If you try to do this, they will not match. Again, just inside. Fold it to the right side. Seam allowance is going this way. I'm catching it. And there we are. All right, that's step 8. Let's turn the page. Step 9, fold the exterior panel in half vertically to make a centering crease or centering line, whatever you want to call it, and then repeat that with your gusset. So let's do, here are the main panels. I'm going to grab my exteriors. Let's go overhead. And I'm going to fold this in half to find my center crease. Now, if you wanted to make little chalk lines, you can. It's up to you. Same thing with this one. And the reason we do this now and not earlier is because I don't know what your seam allowance ended up being. We can always say that we want it to be perfect, but the truth is we all sew differently, and we need to use techniques that ensure everyone has a good result. My 1/4 inch is probably not your 1/4 inch, that kind of thing. Even though it should be, it's just not reality. Okay, so I matched those creases, and I know that that is now in the middle. Then I'm going to come up this way and match this top edge. Don't panic. This is the hardest part, but you're going to do it just fine. I'm going to do that, okay? I'll move this one up top. Now I'm going to work my way around down the side. And we're going to have to ease these curves a bit, especially if you're using vinyl. And if you want to, when you get down to this portion here, if you just take your fingers and kind of pinch it, see how it's almost like a dart here? It helps me sew it more accurately and get a good result on a curve. Now I'm going to do the same thing over here. I'm going to bring it up this way, and then I'm going to pinch it with my fingers, and then lay it flat. and use a clip to hold that. Now, if your piece did not fit, do not panic. You can either unclip it and redo these seams if it's too long so that you are fitting. You could, if it's not long enough, you can just add some more vinyl up here at the top. Nobody else is going to notice it. You just sew it together and make sure you top stitch the seam down if you need to do that. You could also match it all here, and any excess, have it hang off here at the top. Sew it down first and then trim your excess vinyl. Last step, okay? So I just don't want anyone to quit and give up and feel bad about themselves if it's not perfect. Make it work. Let's sew this baby down. Let's go to the machine. We are going to backstitch here. I'm using that 3mm stitch length, and you just go as slow as you need to. Now you're going to press this down, flatten it out. If you need to use your mallet, do it. That's what tools are for. I'm coming up close to this one, coming around that mountain. Here we go. And there we are. Now I'm going to check all my seams. And if there's anywhere that I missed or it's not looking good, I'm going to go through it again. But this looks good. One of the surest ways to ruin your happiness is to nitpick yourself to death. And remember, the first time through a bag pattern is not going to be your best. You have to get through it once and then perfect it for you. Okay, let me check my pattern before I keep going and talking. Good. All right, let's add the other side of the bag just the exact same way. So we're going to find that centering crease, match it with the centering crease here, and use lots of clips. And by the way, we then repeat this to make the lining bag. So you're going to do the same thing again for the WRC. All right, here's this piece. I'm gonna do the same thing. And I wanna use my tighter clips on that corner because it wants to pull a bit. Then I'm gonna do the same thing over here. You can use a lot of clips. It really is up to you. And now we're going to sew all the way around again. a little tight, so I'm going to go through that corner again. All right. And take it back over and trim down my seam allowances. Clip these curves. Oof. Maybe don't drink 6 cups of coffee before you try to sew. There's a life hack. I'm gonna trim these corners at the top. I did not clip this side. I forgot that. Let's clip that corner. Trim any excess fabric. Probably trimming seams on vinyl is one of the biggest tips I can give you, because it's totally different than your seam allowance on cotton. It just won't bend as easily, so you gotta get it out of your way. All right. Again, I'm just going to clean my space up. I need to check, make sure I hit everything. My seams. Let's turn this bag right sides out gently. We drop in our lining so it's easier than birthing it. And don't worry, I've got you. Do not panic. Don't quit. You're gonna be fine. I'm just coming in with my fingers and I'm pushing everything out. If this is gonna wait a little bit for you to finish, why don't you put some clips on your seams now to try and train them to sit properly. You could also just press at the end with a Teflon sheet. It's up to you, but since I'm gonna make that lining bag right now, I'm just gonna put a couple of clips here. Now, if you're worried about your clips leaving bite marks, just put a strip of batting or foam or something in between the teeth of the clips and your vinyl. I'm gonna live dangerously and just do it. And I'm gonna do it along the bottom too. At least it'll get a few minutes of being trained. I'm starting to get hot. Is it a hot flash or is it bag making? Nobody knows. And nobody cares. At least I don't. Okay, so it's just gonna sit here for a little bit and hopefully My seams will pop a bit more once I put my lining bag inside. All right, let's review and do the same exact steps we just did. I'll have Ramel fast forward it for you. And let's get our lining bag together. Let's go overhead. Clean up your space. And that was step 10 that we just finished. Oh, sorry. Step 10, repeat this for the lining to build the lining bag. If you'd like to add your slip-in pockets, you need to do that before you put the bag pieces together for the lining. But remember, I said I'm not going to put pockets on the inside of my bag. It's too small of a bag for me. I don't need pockets. Okay, so for the easier version of the bag, where did you put my flap? Here it is. The one without pockets, you're gonna measure down. I want you to take this edge and make a mark. 2 inches down. Okay, and I'm just gonna do a dot. That is where you're gonna either sew or rivet on the back of the flap. That's the bound piece. And then that will be attached and it will come over to the front, and we'll need to put in our magnet now before you put in the lining of the bag, which we completed in the previous step. So you would add your magnet now. You're going to make a mark, centering so that it will match this guy, right? And we'll go ahead and put that in. Again, this is the easy version. We'll separate these out for you. We're putting this in now so that you don't see the magnet once the liner is in. All right, so you'll just proceed as normal. Finish putting your magnet in, and then we'll sew this in. So now step 11, we're gonna put the lining bag inside the exterior bag. I'll take off these clips now. Okay, let's go overhead. Here's my exterior bag. I'm gonna put my lining inside. First thing you want to do is match up these side seams first and place your clips. And match the top raw edges. All right, we're gonna sew around that top edge, but I want you to use a little bit bigger seam allowance or stitch length. Not necessarily a base stitch like a 5, but maybe 4 millimeter would be good. Because what we're gonna do with that top edge is bind it or do a vinyl facing. And I don't want too small of stitches right next to each other. We don't want to perforate the vinyl. All right, so a way around this, if you don't have a cylinder machine, which I do not, is we put a riser, even blocks of wood, underneath the machine to lift it up. Let me show you. You don't have to do this because I didn't do it on my 2 test bags. I just left my machine like this. But it's just an easier way, so I want to be sure to show you. This is a shelf. This guy is on Etsy. I forget his name, but he literally, his shop, this is all he does. He makes sewing machine risers, okay? I'm gonna lift my machine. And I've got a really heavy machine. This thing, it has to be solid wood. He probably said it in his listing and I didn't read it all the way. Oh! Okay, I'm gonna start on the side because just in case I mess it all up, I don't want it on the front center, you know? You want to be close to the edge on this. And by the edge, I mean this edge. Stop every so often, reposition. Ramel, you tell me if my head gets in the way, okay? I'm standing on one leg kind of diagonally. This is weird. It's a challenge. Love a challenge. See how every so often I stop and reposition the bag. We're coming back to the beginning. I'm going to reposition. All right, we're back to the beginning. I'm going to leave my machine on the riser because at this point you can make a decision. You could pink this edge with pinking shears, the jaggedy ones, if you don't want to do a facing or vinyl. You can color it with Sharpie. You can hit it with fray check. You could do a like rights binding if you're more comfortable with that. All right, we are on step 13. We're going to place the flap. So we need to be working with the back side of the bag. That's, if you put the pockets on, that's the side without a magnet. So this is the back side of the bag. You're going to take your ruler and mark 2 inches down. So it's almost at the top of the pocket, a little bit above it, and you want this centered. So take a hot minute and make sure that these spaces from here to here and here to here are the same, or is the same. That's where we want it. And what I recommend you do, unless you have a really heavy duty machine, is rivet this on. So let me come over here. I'm going to use my rivet tool. So this right here is about, it's 7.5 inches right here. Nearly, like within 1/8 of an inch. So I'll just center it. All right, you're going to take this end, which is 7.5 inches across, and mark the center. That's at 3 3/4 inch. And we're going to put a rivet right there. Give me 1 second. I'm going to place it now, at least the cap. Now, depending on the size of your rivet, you have to be up far enough so it's not going off your edge. Let me show you. I have big rivets. These are 12mm head. So what I mean is I didn't want my rivet hole down here because then my rivet would have been off the edge of my flap. Okay? So there's the center. Now we're going to go 2 inches over and make a mark. 2 inches over and make a mark. And we're going to put our holes in the same place. So that they're all even. Oh, I might have to move that one up a bit. That's the thing I love about a 12mm cap though, is you can cover mistakes. Let me see how this looks. Yeah, it needs to be moved up just a smidge. Here's 1, 2, and 3. So that looks pretty good. Now, if you wanted to add more, you could come out here to the side, but I think this will be enough. Now remember, on our bag, we want this to be centered. Pay attention to the side seam and where it hits. Here. You want these even. And then I also should have done a little mark for 2. Oops, that one's 2.5. Go 1.5 inches down. So I'm changing that. 1.5 inches down. There's my mark. So now I've got to do this portion. Is that the center? I'm on that centering crease. All right, I've got the center there. I'm just going to make sure, oop, I'm putting it on this way. We want the flap to go over the top. All right, so I've got that middle one placed. Okay, so see how my magnet found its mate? Perfect. So I only had to punch that middle one to find proper placement. Now I can simply press these down. And I have markings for where these holes need to be. All right. I'm going to unmagnetize that because I need to put on my caps. I like doing it at this point in the game because I don't mind looking at rivets on the lining of the bag, for one thing. I don't think it's ugly or anything. And I want to make sure that my flap placement is exactly correct. And it just doesn't work out when I try to do this earlier in the game. All right, so now I just have to set those. So you know what I'm gonna do. So I'm gonna get my table press again. Let's go back overhead. And I'm gonna set these. Just make sure that you're in the cradle here. You'll have to scooch your bag out of the way, but it's not difficult. Just get it. You can always roll this up, bring it through. You just don't want to set these crooked, so make sure your rivet is in that cradle. Try to move it. If it's not moving, you're in the cradle. There's that one, and there's that one set. And now my flap is on. All right. The hardest part is now done. Okay, let's do our strap and we'll be out of here. Hello, I'm gonna do the strap now, and there's a little bit easier of a method thanks to Michelle. She helped me out with this one. So I'm just gonna take you overhead and let's cut a 3-inch tall rectangle by about 30 inches long. Okay, so there's one strip. Then we're gonna fold this in half and cut our strap piece. So use that folded edge and that bottom raw edge and do this as best you can. I honestly rough cut it and get the straight bits as good as possible, like there. And then what I'm gonna do, time to change my blade, is I'm gonna grab a clip. I'm gonna go like this, hold this in place. I'm gonna draw around this and then cut it with my hand scissors. Now, you can do whatever method works for you best, but this is what works for me. It doesn't even have to make a pen mark, honestly. I just need that indentation on where I'm cutting, and I need these layers to stay together. So it's easier for me to manipulate without the template right there, and then I can see the grooves. And it doesn't have to be absolute perfection. Don't forget, like it can, if you cut into it a little too far, well, your strap will just be slightly different than the rest of us. It's okay. Like that. I need to clean that curve up. I'm going to round this tip here. We just want both of those ends to be the same because they're going to have holes in them. And then I did not get this even at all. So see how I goofed that up a little bit? That's okay. I'm just going to come in here and make it a little less angled so it matches the other side. It's just little tiny adjustments. It's looking good enough for me. So now I'll open it, and there we are. And then this part, I like to use my screw punch like I've been doing in the video. If you can't get that, you can get, this one won't work. There are little, what are they called? Flare pens that have a longer tip where you can just make a dot and then use your hole puncher tool if you want, use the Japanese screw punch tool if you want. Whatever works for you is totally fine. So on that note, I am going to mark my dots on each end, and then I'll show you how we're sewing this together. I'm gonna punch these. It's best if you don't do the punching directly on your cutting mat, because it will cut your cutting mat. But I'm doing it, as you know, I'm a rebel without a cause, right? And I just do what I want. Well, it's easier to see on camera if I do it here. That's why. Okay, so I've got my holes punched. Now that strip that we cut, we're gonna lay it on top. Now I cut it way long. That's okay. I just didn't want you to run out, because that's the worst. So what I'm gonna do is bring it up here to this top straight edge, because that way I don't have to cut that part. Anything that can reduce my cutting, I'm here for it. Okay, and I'm gonna move this out of the way. And then depending on how you wanna do this, I like to start out with my scissors. If it's going really easily, then I'll just continue. You could do the straight edges with your rotary. Well, this is just one straight edge. It seems it's fine, so I'm just gonna keep going. Oh my gosh. I should have sewn this first. That's okay. Here, you know what, you guys? This happens to me. I have 8,000 things on my mind. Let's sew it first and then trim. Ooh, hello, good morning. Let's go to the machine. I'm gonna turn it to a 3.5 stitch length. I know you all don't mind when I have these moments, because you're all so sweet. Okay, and I'm curving it here, not pulling. Remember, don't pull. Now here I'm getting down towards these tiny, smaller curves, but I don't really want to reduce my stitch length, so I'm going to do a lot of pivoting and just call it good. This edge is a little bit uneven, but I can clean that up at the end. There, we're back to the beginning. Don't backstitch a ton, because you don't want it. I love that sound. The airplane going overhead. I don't know if you all can hear it, but there's an airplane radial engine obviously going overhead. Anywho, what was I saying? It's gone. I don't remember. It's out of here. You know what I should start saying? My thought went airborne. That sounds more hardcore, right? Yeah. Okay, so now if you want to go overhead, Rom, you can see me. I'm just cutting the excess from the rectangle away. And this way, this is so genius of Michelle to share this with me, because this ensures that you're not sitting here for 100 years cutting out your strap. So thank you, Michelle Graham, for this little time saver tip. All right, it looks like I have just a smidge here to clean up. I'll do that by hand. You could also use your acrylic ruler and rotary cutter. All right, and there's our strap. Isn't that great? Now, if you want to, edge coat this, or you could use the Sharpie. Do whatever you like there. It doesn't bother me enough for me to invest the time to edge coat it. That's just personal preference. This is how I am. But if I were going to sell this bag, then I would probably do an edge coat. All right. So then you'll just carry on with adding your lobster swivels and your little rivets. Match up those holes right there and then set your rivets. We don't do an adjustable buckle on this strap. It's not long enough for that. It's just meant to be an over-the-shoulder carry, and it's also long enough if you want to put it on your forearm and carry your bag like that. So very quick and awesome little tip there on the strap. So there you are. Okay, let's keep going. Okay, so I have my tabletop cam press from Cam. I was going to say from. All right, I have one lobster swivel pulled onto here. Let's go overhead. Then we're going to match the holes that we punched. Let's see here. Here it is. So what might be easiest is if you push one rivet through. Oh, I didn't get that hole all the way through. Sometimes that happens. Okay, there's that rivet. I'm going to fold this back. What's going on with me? Is my strength just not adequate today? Because I didn't punch this one deep enough either. I gotta increase my weights, Ramel. My dumbbells. There's that. I'm going to put on the cap. And then I'm going to take it through here. And it's set. That is going nowhere. Look at that. All right, let's do the same thing over here. It looks like I didn't make these. I must have been in a gentle state of mind. Here we are. Oops. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to grab a swivel before I forget. Put that on. Don't test me, Ramel. I'm just kidding. Always test me. Always question me, please. I'm going to do the cap. There's that. Now I'm going to put it in the cradle. I'm making sure it's not moving. And there we are. And the strap is ready to hook onto the D-rings of the bag that are already sewn on. Now you may notice I'm using gold rivets and lobster swivels here. This vinyl, I think you could get away with all sorts of colors of hardware. So use whatever you've got and just get her done, right? Post your picture in our makers group so you can be eligible to win the $100. I want to give that away to y'all. All right, let's keep going. Now we've got our bag and we get to put on the strap like so. It must be raining. And there it is. It's a nice wide strap, so it's very comfortable. If you wanted to make it skinnier, you can. Now, if you're in my SVC club, you got a free acrylic template, which was a lot of money. But you got it for free. Everyone else can purchase one if you want one. If you want that template. Look at that! I did it. Barely, but I did it. So there you are. Feel free to modify however you like. It's never a problem. And also, I just want to remind you all that you can sell your handmade bags at craft shows without permission. If you made it, you can sell anything, no matter what pattern you're using. But any of mine are always okay to do that. I want you to make money from your work. I want you to do that. There she is. Now I just need to stuff it with some bubble, let it sit for a day or two, and then I can use it. I hope you had fun. Thank you so much for sewing with me. Please don't forget to subscribe and send this to a friend. Maybe they want to get into bag making. You don't have to make it with vinyl. You could always make this from canvas fabric, and it will be easier. You know, one thing about sewing that I love so much is there's always more to learn. There's always a way to push yourself further. And for me, it's using these materials that I really find fun and enjoyable and modern. It's just the look I like. So there you are. All right, Ram, your turn.
So we're doing the pillow.
Yeah, we'll do the pillowcase instead. All right. I'll see you soon. Peace, love, sewing.